everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I am bringing you my January wrap up. Now, in some ways this was a very successful month and in some ways it wasn't. So I read a total of 13 books. So wow, yes, me read more than 10 books in a month. My average is usually between 6 and 8 depending on the month. And I think I did really well. I'm very pleased with myself. However, there are some things I had planned that didn't quite come through. Like the Bean Boozled challenge that I set for myself, I completely failed because I had to forfeit because it made me really sick. Trying to read a Bean Boozled for every chapter of one book, which is 300 plus pages, it's impossible, at least for me. And I decided it wasn't worth putting myself through that, so I forfeited and said I would do 2 challenges next month, which I'm more than happy to do. So, yeah. I only ended up not reading one book out of my TBR game prompts, and that was to read a book 500 or more pages, and that was Assassin's Quest. So I will probably be rolling that over into next month. Even though technically I have read a book that's over 500 pages, this was the one I picked for the prompt and I didn't read it, so yeah, I'm pretty pleased that that's the only book I didn't get to, despite deciding to read other books instead of my TBR game ones. Oh well. I'm pretty pleased with my progress. So let's get into the books. So the first book I read, which I did carry over from December last year, was The Hate You Give. I started reading it in December but didn't actually get too far, so I read the majority in January, so that's why I'm counting it. This is about a girl that she's in this situation and her friend gets shot by a policeman, unprovoked, and this isn't the only time she's seen something like this happen. And so she's trying to process this throughout the book, and we see her start to understand the way things happen, and that sometimes they don't happen the way they should, and that the justice system is not great in the slightest. And yeah, I really adored this book. I thought it was emotional and it was empowering and it was enlightening. But yeah, I really did enjoy this book. I enjoyed the story. Everything about it was just brilliantly done, and I think it really does shine a light on how situations can be in real life, and I'm really glad I read this because I feel a bit more like informed of how things happen and that they don't always go the way they should and the way that we want. So yeah, this was just a brilliantly done book, and it was really emotional, and I did cry multiple times. I'm pretty sure I gave this a 5-star because how could I not? It was amazing. The next book I read but didn't read because I DNF'd it, The Lair of Rooms. I was buddy reading this series with Brooke from Brooke's Books, and Catherine, one of our other friends, joined in on this one, and let me tell you, it did not go well. So me and Brooke, last year, I can't remember when we read it, but we read The Diviners, and it was okay. Like, I enjoyed it, but it wasn't amazing to me. So we follow in the first. I can't really tell you what happens in this book because it's a prequel, but the first book we follow this girl. She's got some supernatural powers, and she's trying to solve a crime that happens, and yeah, for the size of the book, especially this one, like I don't know, I was thrown off in this book because we are introduced to some characters straight away. We don't even get to see the original characters straight away, and yeah, that threw me off quite a lot, and I just found it really slow to get through. It felt like this was just a load of waffle. They didn't seem to be getting anywhere, and I was just kind of like, well, this is kind of painful. So I did DNF it, sadly, which means I won't be continuing the series. However, I would rather put it down than try and force myself to read it and put myself in a slump. So obviously this book got no stars. The next book I read was The Invisible Life of Addy The Invisible Life of Addy LaRue. I buddy read this with someone who actually pushed me on Twitter. I was very surprised, but very excited. I will try to think of her Twitter handle, but I can't, so I will, and her YouTube, but I can't, so I'll link it down below. She's a lovely, lovely girl. Just started a channel. Go check her out. But we buddy read The Invisible Life of Addy LaRue, and it was a beautiful, beautiful story, and I really did enjoy it. So we follow this girl who made a deal with the devil. So she wanted more time to do stuff and explore and live, and that's what she gets. However, the cost of that was no one can remember her. So straight off the bat, everyone in her village doesn't know her and everything like that, which is quite disorientating and scary, if I'm honest. And so we follow her. We kind of go back and forth between the past and the present, and in the present she actually finds someone who remembers her name, which obviously shocks the hell out of her because she thought she couldn't be remembered. And we kind of go through all these things that happened to her during her time alive and things like that. And it's a really emotional story because she meets some amazing people, but obviously they don't remember her. However, she is trying to leave her mark in subtle ways, and I thought that was really heartwarming. And the end of this book couldn't have been done any better. I couldn't see it going another way. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was the biggest plot twist. And props to Addy LaRue. This is just... I kind of want like a little novella just to see what happens, but I can kind of know what happens already, but it's just like, yeah, this book was brilliant. Pretty sure I gave this a 4.5 stars. It was a little bit slow for me because I'm used to more fast-paced books, but it was brilliant. The next book I read was Dance of Flames. This is a very short book, as you can see. This one actually fit my prompt for under 300 pages, and it is, pretty sure it is 123 pages. So yeah, that was easy. I really enjoyed this actually. It's another magic-based book. I tend to read a lot of those, where magic users are not forbidden as such, but they're kind of against the law. Like they're allowed to live and things like that, but they're not typically, everyone who sees them use magic, like they're kind of like outcasts as such. And there's 2 characters in this, and we are following them after they've had to leave their home because it burnt down, and we follow them on their journey. There is a consequence to the magic. If they use it all up, or they reach that point, they will die. So you could die anytime. It doesn't matter when. It's just whenever you've used up all your magic, you die. So you could die young, you could die old. It doesn't matter. And I thought this, for being such a short book, it was actually quite good, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the plot, and I enjoyed where it went. And I kind of want to read the other ones because this is actually better than I thought, because obviously it's a short book. I didn't really know how much it was going to get in, like story-wise and like character development-wise. But no, it was really good, and I actually enjoyed the characters, and the ending was quite sad. But I enjoyed it because you know what I'm like. I love bittersweet endings. So I think I ended up giving this a 4 star. It was pretty good, and yeah. The next book I read, or we read, was The Assassin's Blade. I'm taking part in Togolong, which is a Throne of Glass read-along for the entire series, and this month we started with The Assassin's Blade, which is just 4 short novellas which come before, obviously, the first book. And when I first read this, I fell in love. And again, when I read this the second time, it just reminded me how much I love the series. And it's like I've fallen in love all over again, because honestly, this book, I don't know why, there's something about this book that just captures me. I love that we get to know Selena, and we kind of learn a few more things about her, and we kind of understand this first book a bit more because of these short novellas, because obviously we learn about things that have led up to what happens in the first book and things like that, and it's really good. I would, if you're thinking about reading the Phoenix Glass series, I would definitely recommend reading the novellas first, because it gives you so much context to what happens in the first book and actually kind of throughout the series. So yeah, definitely read this one first. I obviously didn't rate it because it's a reread, but if I was going to, it'd obviously be a 5 stars. Amazing book. I cannot wait to read the rest of the series. The next book I read was Ninth Judgement. Rereading. I'm buddy reading the series with Connor from Connor's Library Corner. No, I have no idea how many times I've actually said that since we started this series, but I'm probably going to say a hell of a lot more before the end of it. I really enjoyed this one. These ones, I love these ones because they're so quick to get through. The reading is just so easy. Like, the writing is fairly big and the chapters are quite short, and that always gives me a little bit like, oh, I can read just one more chapter, and then I read another one because they're so short. So I always love that aspect of these books. And in this one, this one's quite a brutal one. One of the things happening is quite disturbing, I'd say, and if you were going to read this, I would definitely have like trigger warning. I mean, obviously in these books there's going to be trigger warnings for like murder and stuff like that, but this one there was like a young death, so yeah, wasn't expecting that, but it did make the story a whole lot more intense. Honestly, in this book especially, I loved how the plot lines crossed over, because they all seem to entwine and like conclude together at the end, and I just thought that was brilliant. I loved all the personal little stories, I always do, and yeah, this, oh my god, one of the things that Lindsay has to do in this one was just like shocking, and I really, like, she deserves a million like awards for what she did, and I'm just kind of like really proud of her, because what she did was like kind of like, how many other people would actually do that? So yeah, I'm pretty sure I gave this one a 4 star. The next book I read was They Both Die at the End. This actually fitted my prompt for read a friend's 5-star read, and this did also end up being a 5-star read for me. We follow 2 boys who have been told that at the end of the day they're going to die. Everyone gets these calls at some point. They have a system where in 24 hours you will die if you get the call, and these 2 boys get the call, and I think they're both around 16 or 17, and which is kind of heartbreaking because that is so young. And we follow them, and there's this app called like the Last Friend app, I believe, and they find each other through that, and they kind of spend the last 24 hours together, kind of saying their goodbyes and kind of encouraging each other to do things that they would never have usually done. And honestly, I was crying so much throughout this book. I got emotional when I just saw the first time stamp. I was like, that's so sad. And like throughout this book when they're saying their goodbyes, it's just really, really heartbreaking, because it's like, this shouldn't be happening, especially with one boy and his dad. That bit really got to me. I'm kind of getting emotional now. It is really sad, but I did really enjoy the moments with their friends because they were so heartwarming. And obviously at the end, it's not a spoiler, the title says it, they both died. The way one of them died, I was not expecting. Obviously I expected them to die, but not the way they did. And honestly, the reasons for that death were too sweet for me, and I like bawled. And then the last death was just like, I liked how they did the last death because they didn't like say how it happened. They kind of just left up to it and then it went gone, which makes sense because obviously the two people like kind of narrating this book were the ones that were dying, so it wouldn't have made sense to carry on after they were both dead. But yeah, brilliant book, 5 stars, 100%. The next book I read was Inca, which fitted my prompt for read a book with an animal character or sidekick, which this does have. I've read this book many times before. I wanted to finish the series this year, so I reread this one, and I really enjoyed it. I think I forgot a few things about it, or they're just things that didn't click with me as they did when I was younger, but I think that's kind of the problem that happens when you read a book when you're growing up and then you reread it. Obviously my opinions have changed, my tastes have changed, but I still did really enjoy it still. I kept comparing it to the movie and I hate that, but I do love the movie and I love some aspects of the movie that weren't in this book. So we follow a father and a daughter, and this father has powers where he can read things out of books, and which is a really cool concept. I really love it. And he read out some people that aren't very nice, and they want him back so that he can obviously read more stuff out for them, and lead up to the big evil plot that they have, which I can't say, obviously. But I really, really did love rereading this. I felt such nostalgia while reading this. And I also have this really beautiful copy which got sent to me while I was reading it, and it's just, it is so beautiful. It actually gave me more motivation to read it, because when I was reading it, I was just like, I really don't want to be reading this book. But then someone kindly sent me this copy, and I was just like, oh my god, that's so pretty, and I picked it up straight away. So apparently sometimes a better cover can really help motivate you to read. I haven't ever rated this book before, so I gave it 4 stars. The next book I read was The Battle for Perfect. This is the last book in a trilogy that I started last year, and just never got around to finishing the last book. I think I may have lost interest over the time between reading the first 2 and reading this one, because I just really was not invested in it. I gave it 3 stars. It was a good book. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just I think I kind of lost interest because I hadn't continued it, and also I was reading the I was eating the Bean Boozles for this one, and I think that kind of just made me lose interest. And actually, just thinking about this book makes me feel a bit sick because I'm thinking about the beans, and it wasn't nice. But yeah, this concludes Violet's journey with Boy, and because obviously I can't say much because it's the 3rd book, but yeah, it was decent. I don't have much to say about it because I just really wasn't that interested. But the next book I read was 10th Anniversary. Obviously, me and Connor are trying to read 2 of these books a month, and we did. This is actually one that I've already read, but never waited or anything. I kept getting senses of deja vu. I was like, I recognise this scene. I was like, oh yeah, I've read the book before. Yeah, so I kind of had a few dumb moments. But I wasn't really invested in this one as I thought I would be. I enjoyed it, but there was nothing like that kept me. It wasn't like the 9th book. The 9th book was intense and crazy, and this one wasn't so crazy for me. I did enjoy that we spent a bit more time in the courtroom with Yuki this time around. I don't really have much else to say. This one was just a little bit like, yeah, we've read it, it's done. But yeah, it was good. And like I said, some of these books are hit or miss with me. Sometimes I really enjoy them, sometimes I'm just a bit like, yeah, it was good. And that's all I really have to say about it. But I do like the ending of this book because we do find out some news, which I've been excited for because there's a hint in like a previous book. I was like, and it's finally come to pass. The last book I read was Heartbones, which I had on my Kindle. It's kind of like I wouldn't really say it's smutty, but it's like a romance drama, so not my typical book. However, I wanted a break from like the fantasies that I was reading, so I picked that up. and I surprisingly really enjoyed it. I gave it a 3.5 star. I did enjoy the drama. I enjoyed I can't even remember the characters' names. I enjoyed the romance, though. Even though I can't remember the names, I did enjoy the romance because it wasn't like a straight up, oh, they fall in love with each other at first sight. They kind of had this like friendly, like they had this like frenemy kind of start, where she thought he got the wrong opinion of her, and it was all a bit like messy, and he had a bit of a troublesome past. So at the end, things kind of got all like crazy, but the ending was really cute. So it was a bit trashy, but I actually really enjoyed it. So yeah, and that wraps up my wrap up. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what your favourite book of January was. Mine was probably, I don't know. I've got so many books on it. Probably The Invisible Life of Addy or They Both Die at the End was my favourite of this month. So let me know what yours is down below, and I will see you guys in my next video.